Doopy doopy doop. We are live. All right. Welcome to Worldwide Slot Car Chat on Zoom, number 183. I'm your host, Greg Gaub. I am looking at a screen full of faces, and I love it. We got Tony and John and Jeremy and Luff and Ed and Gio and Don and Courtney and Mike and John and Garth and Martin and Pete and Ken and Dewan and Una and Dennis and Charles and, Chuck and J-Rod. Let's talk about slot cars. So today we're going to start off a little bit different. Ed is new for sure, and Ken, I recognize your face. You've been on before, haven't you? I think you have. If you haven't, you can do an introduction if you want to. Not going to put you on the spot.
But yes, I've been on once. Sorry, yes, I've been on once or twice. I was trying to unmute.
I thought so. No worries. Okay, Ed, I will let you tell us about your slot car related history from childhood to now, as much or as little as you want to share, and then we'll go into the presentation that you've prepared.
Okay. Well, I got started in slot cars as an early teen. There was a slot car facility in downtown Campbell, California. I used to ride my bicycle down there, and my first slot car was a Cox kit of some kind of F1 open wheel car that I completely set up wrong, and I had to go down to the shop, and they corrected me on every single thing. I thought it all had to be tight. And anyway, that kind of led to, a little bit there at that facility. I didn't have any track at home. Oh, I did build a routed track at one time with my dad. And then I kind of got away from it for a while, then ended up with the Revell track. My brother-in-law was into slot cars, and we kind of goofed around with that stuff. And then between the military and college and career, I got away from it. And then my brother-in-law was kind of confined to home, so I started looking around at stuff to give him, and I bought him, I think it was called Aintra, little slotless thing, and that wasn't all that interesting. And so I got a digital Carrera set, and I gave it to him, and it was like, there's some kind of merit with this digital side of slots. And so I saw the same kit at, I think, about $100 less a little while later on Amazon. So I took the leap and bought me one. So for the last 2+ years, I've been just scratching around in the world of digital slots and evolved to a corner that's a little different than what we typically see here. And that's what I'm going to talk about. So I've kind of been more to the go deep electronic side of things. And I'm going to talk about that with you guys today. And hopefully in this forum, it could be another element that works its way forward over time. So I'm ready to share the screen whenever you want.
Go for it. Great segue.
Okay, let me find it here. I got 10 windows open, so I got to find the right one.
Yep. And it's the one that got closed.
No, it's just I'm having trouble identifying it the way this comes up.
Oh, yeah.
It's in here somewhere. Oh, there it is. Okay, so I'm going to really go into a talk. Oh, there's some kind of control thing here. Anyway, about RF controller with digital Carrera. And in the evolution of this thing, we'll kind of show you how bi-sided slots look, digital slots look like, which is sort of unique to what I typically see on this forum. And I want to start off by thanking everybody.
Sorry, just for the layman out there, RF is referring to radio frequency, as in wireless controllers.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I'll try to be careful with the acronyms, but I wanted to thank everybody that's on here. I've learned a lot from you guys, and I usually watch, after the event, and I kind of scan through, but I've picked up a ton of tidbits from this forum, so I really enjoy what you guys do. How's this thing? How do I advance it? God, it added controls that I'm just not used to here.
You might be able to use the left.
Oh, there
and right.
It is. There you go. Okay. Well, and then put this bar in front of everything. Okay. Well, the first thing I wanted to talk, what you're going to see later, some of it I've kept kind of blurry and small, only because I'm trying to be considerate of the people that develop this, because in order to achieve what I want to do, I've had to kind of go deep, and it's not necessarily public, but I am in communications with the people that develop this so that I'm not violating anything that, and they're, well, just to keep them well aware of what I'm doing. So I kind of respect the fact that both Scorpius and Bluetooth are, small companies with limited development. So my objective is I wanted to expand on their capability, but I treat anything that is theirs as proprietary, even though I'm not under NDA or anything else. So I don't typically share anything that I find publicly, unless it's already public or it has their approval. One of the things that always gets asked, am I going to productize what I do? And I'm not. I'm 73. I have no interest in going through all the headaches that it takes to do that. But if there's something I have that someone else wants to, and it's okay, and one of these two companies decides that they don't want to do it themselves, then I'm willing to share it. Then when it comes to the Carrera side of things, a lot of people share the protocols there, even though generally they're not shared by Carrera. So like with the Frankenstock, I know they're doing the wireless interface, which I went off and figured out on my own because I couldn't find it published anywhere. And same is true of what I refer to as their controller digital protocol. So I'm not quite sure if I should just share this stuff or not. And I thought in the course of our conversation, it'd be nice to get a few opinions on this. But my view in general is that there's a lot of elements on the digital side that could go further forward faster if things were a little bit more open. Plus, I think it would open up what you're going to see here, this other side of the hobby that would benefit everybody, especially on the digital side. So that's kind of framing a bit of my caution around what you're about to see. Hang on here. Okay, so basically looking at what I was trying to do relative to Carrera. So here's a guy, I buy a Carrera set, you're playing around with stuff, you start to see some of the limitations of everything that's going on. And I thought, well, there's better ways to do this. And one of the first things I did, with which you'll see later, was I didn't like the way Ghost Cars worked. And I'm a lone user, I'm kind of in a remote area. The closest track to me is probably an hour and a half away or more, down in the Phoenix area. And so I got interested in doing something different. So I made kind of a competitive approach to an autonomous car. But what I found is one of the things that frustrated me was the limitations on the controllers, and I wanted a better controller. So, and I love the ability of being able to do adjustments at the controller. But I wanted to use all my Carrera components. I didn't see any reason why I have to completely switch over to this thing or that thing just in order to do something that I perceive is, I just want a better interface to the car for speed. So my requirements are, I want the LC information, that's lane change, to go directly to the control unit. And I want the IR LED in the car to always be on at the Carrera ID frequency. And if you look at that, okay, there's two solutions out there. There's the Oxygen stuff and the Scorpius stuff. So I went looking in that direction. So if you look at Oxygen, they have a mode solution called D132, but that requires you to, that the ID only comes on when you press the lane change button or you have a Hall effect magnet that kicks off. But you could do something in firmware or in a mode that would provide what I'm looking for. And then what I looked at is there's an easy way to get the LC request into the control unit via a little box that you would do yourself that would take the RF information, convert it over to this digital controller protocol on the Carrera CU. And that has a secondary benefit in that right now you do this weird jumper hack on the oxygen side in Carrera to get this Carrera ID stuff to work. And that works to a degree, but you're limited by the way that the controller works and ID numbers. And this particular method would allow you to do all 6 Carrera IDs in a very simple way, and you don't have to do a weird jumper. So, and then when you look at Scorpius, I didn't really go down that path very far, mainly because they implement their IR stuff opposite. So in this little chart that you see here, Carrera and oxygen are oriented the same relative to the LED and the photosensor for infrared, but Scorpius is opposite. I didn't want to go down a direction of having to make those kind of changes. So at this particular point, I just pretty much focused on the SCP-3. So basically what I'm trying to do is something like this, where I get an RF controller. So, and then it would output as RF. The LC request would go to a thing that has to be developed that would come in on either port 1 or 2 into the control unit. And then at the same time, the speed would go to the car chip, but it needs the Carrera ID fix that we talked about earlier. And this would allow me then to pretty much use what I have, but just update to an RF controller and the corresponding RF chips. And then there's a question in this box. So where I'm at the moment is I've, on my own, figured out a lot of how the communication is coming out of the RF controller. And I actually am capturing that via this little thing here that you see. This is a microcontroller going to a NRF radio. It's this particular version, the 24. And this is a view of the data that's coming across here that's actually going to this car. And what I've done is, this is my little listing that I know you can't see it, but what it's doing is it's showing all the channels that are necessary for the 20 IDs in Scorpius. It's defining a lot of the protocol that you need to do to understand how to decode this. And then a bunch of questions I need to go over with Christian and Mauricio to further my understanding. This is what the code looks like that actually is decoding and creating this list. So basically, I have a pretty good understanding of at least how to receive this information. This here is this interface. That's fairly well understood and documented. Matter of fact, I helped someone on the forum who goes by DeFargo. His name's David. He actually developed a really kind of nice autonomous thing that he's working on. And he and I finalized actually documenting the rest of this protocol. And it's a little weird. It was used, I think, initially for the infrared controllers that Carrera came out with, which initially supported 4 cars and then went on to support 6. So the protocol gets a little contorted, but it's yet another Manchester encoded thing. And I think I'm getting close enough between understanding this side of it and this side of it that I could start to write the code for what is represented in this blue box. Then the rest of it that is needed here, I've actually talked to Mauricio about it a couple of times, and they're supportive of what I'm doing, but they're not currently supporting anything, mainly because their activity with version 4 of O2 is keeping them pretty busy. But I just keep on sending them updates and asking questions, and from that I get feedback and move forward. But once I could kind of get this going, then I could get back to this stage where I have all the standard Carrera stuff that I currently use, which is all this black stuff. I've developed this. I have the RF coming in, and I'm up and running with Carrera, and I'm using all my standard Carrera compatible stuff, but I'm RF to the car with lane change control. And then once I finally get that done, this is a major diversion from, you did an autonomous car using Carrera stuff, which you'll see in a minute. You went searching for a better controller, and it diverted to everything that you're about to see. And I'm still lost in the world of diversion. So basically, I would get to here where I could come back to this box, which is my autonomous activity so I can race against somebody here at home, which is effectively just me, but I can't seem to keep up with it. And I have most of the pieces done, so I know how to sync. I know how to do the autonomous way. And my method is pretty much different than what everybody else has done out there. I actually record, I tweak it, edit, optimize it, and I play it back. But the thing here I still need to figure out is how to do the RF transmission side that this would require. But that's just a yet another step in what I've been doing. So to give you an idea, this here is what I call a smart controller. And this thing here, I don't know if some of you might have seen my videos I posted, but what this did is I was able to create what I would call multi-speed competitive autonomous cars. And this is the code that's running on this microcontroller. Most of this code is setting up stuff. There's a little piece of code here that's actually doing the interrupt and collecting the synchronization stuff. And then this little bit of code down here is actually pumping out the next value and determining whether it needs to be resynced or not. But it's comprised of a microcontroller, this code that goes on it. There's just 4 resistors, 2 diodes that are optional, a couple of connections, and then of course this connection into the control unit. So it's it's nothing too complex, but I had this running. I had 2 cars running, one in each lane. There's no lane changing going on because when you're running at this rate, these numbers here represent the speeds as you go around the track. And the reason they don't look like 0 to 15, which are the Carrera numbers that you would think, these are actually the values that have to go to the digital to analog converter, which goes into the port on the control unit, which is an analog value. And there could be as many as 55. And the ones that are gray are out. I use them for debugging and just testing stuff. But I was able to create 2 cars that were really just me running around and recorded. But when I went to race against them where I was using the controller, I had a hard time competing against myself. So it got to be kind of fun. And as a matter of fact, the only car that was crashing was me with the controller. And what it did is I remember watching one of the videos or one of the things that Marco does at Electric Dreams, where he's interviewing the guys, and I forget the gentleman's name, but he was one of the higher performing racers. And one of his statements was, consistency is how you win races. Well, this kind of proved that point, because these 2 cars were consistently doing well where me, the human, was struggling to keep up. So it was interesting exercise. So this is just a view so you could see how I collect the information and how I get it and why I'm careful about how I share it. Oh, hang on, that got moved. So as you can see in my work environment, I have a ton of screens up at the same time, and these things are spread across a ton of screens. But the first way I gather information is I look at bus interfaces internal to these devices. And this is a Frankenslot controller where the microprocessor talks to the radio through a SPI bus. And this is also true in the SCP3. And this is the power amplifier, and it's also on that. And then this is a CRI module for O2, and it does a similar thing where the microprocessor is talking to a radio through a SPI bus. And what that does is it generates either a view like this, which is a time view of the communications. And in this particular case, this is very helpful because in the Wireless Plus, this offset where the data is actually is an indication of what your ID number is. And you would have never seen it without it being able to stack these views together. But otherwise, what you get is a dump of data here that looks like this. This is a command going out and a command coming back in. Depending on the command, this stuff following it could be data. And you could take that and you could put it in advanced editors and look for repetition and stuff. But what I do now is I put it in a spreadsheet, And then I dig in and I either look at register values for a device or instructions for the processor, which in the case of the advanced Nordic Semiconductor devices, there's an ARM core in there, so it's ARM instructions. And I write them down, and when they're read like this, it's telling me it's something I'm interested in, and I can see where it's changing. So I can get an idea of how a radio is set up and working. And then beyond that, I go to another level, which is a different interface, this into an SCP3, which requires a special interface module. But what this does, it allows me to look at basically the whole structure of the internal Nordic Semiconductor device that's in here. So I can do things like poke around in memory. I can do dumps of memory, which then help me create this thing here is the memory map of the processor that's in here. So I can see all the registers for the radio. I can see everything that's going on. And then this tool here is a reverse engineering tool that's made by the NSA, but you're allowed to use it. And what it's doing is here it's looking at the assembly level language and trying to make sense out of it. And over here is trying to give you a C representation of that. I went down this path, and it's a steep learning curve, but and it's been of limited value so far. I've gotten most of my information over here, but I continue to go down this path to gain more. Excuse me. Let me go here. Oh, come on. So the other thing I do is document. So basically, this is a document here. Excuse me. That this is every all the companies that have radio RF-based devices, and this is what's in them as far as the Nordic Semiconductor device and any particular notes about those. And then down here, these are devices I have that I could use to code up my own stuff. And then this is a list of all the processors that I have that I could do various things with. Here I've kind of documented how the interfaces to the control unit work and what the pins are doing and how it makes sense of things. This is kind of a view of what the digital controller interface looks like. And then lastly, what I do is my track is set up where I can go back and forth between all these things. So I've set up my track such that on the digital side, I can either run from the Carrera digital control unit, or I can just flip it over where there's, by direct, I mean it's direct power to the rail. So here I can run Scorpius, or I can run Oxygen. I can run, maybe a chip controller that I did myself. And then I can flip to the other side where I run analog. For a while, Carrera, a long time ago, made something similar to what I forget what the name is. It's where you put the chip decoder between the rails and the controller, slot tech or something like that. I forget the name. So I can run with that, or I can run over to controllers, which is the standard controller interfaces, but I power each of mine separately so I can do things like this. So connected here is a CRI module, but I only power one side, so I can take the output and drive it to both rails. So it doesn't matter which lane I'm in. I don't have to switch controllers. I can just play with it. So I can hook up the WAM, and I can hook up the other stuff here. And, is it Courtney? I got all my controllers from for Scorpius, and Henry, I got all the rest of the components from for Scorpius that I do various things with. So I do that, and then I go further in digging in and documenting. There turns out there's a spreadsheet on the slotted page under the SCP3 where they put together. It's actually password protected, where you can play with the elements of the SCP3. Well, it just so happens when I moved it over to, I'm a Mac user, it threw away the password protection, and I was able to go in and look at everything. So I created these charts so I could see, hey, what's going on when it's in linear mode? What's going on when it's in curve mode, what are the ranges of the knobs? And then I did this kind of the same thing for braking, so I could see, like when it was into sweep braking, what does that really look like, relative to some incremental time. And it's kind of gave me a view of things. And I've run this by Greg because this is one of the things, since it's public, I can kind of go ahead and put this up on the Slot Forum International site. One of the things that I discovered is now that I can look at the output of the controller, this needs some updating, because like here where it shows when CM is 0, this is actually set at 60%. Well, I noticed when I was looking at the output that this is now 70%. So it needs a little updating. But what's also neat is one of the things that you couldn't put your handle on is like when you do power trim, what is exactly it doing? Well, because I can see the output and I can see it for every single change of throttle, I can actually see what power trim is doing. And so I have a good handle now on what that is. So I document this stuff. Then in the process of getting all that earlier stuff working that we talked about, I got to thinking that, you know what, I might be able to do an LC request that's independent of the control unit. And this is just an idea. These are the 4 pulses that are put out based on the 4 buttons that combinations you could do with the lane change unit. So then I also thought, well, one of the things I like about my Carrera system, I have anti-collision with lane gate. So I'm going to try to do a thing where I take the Carrera Infinite IR LED, its comparator, because I was trying to avoid the what's referred to as the S board with the oxygen stuff, lane gate, and their C board, and put it together. Well, I did that, and it works to a point. So I have a dual lane changer in the middle of my track, and it actually works this way. So basically, if I hit the button on the SCP3, it changes lanes, and it's not going through the control unit, mainly because it senses, the proper signal here. Well, so basically it's configured as shown here, which basically these are the photo transistors, which then go through the lane gate, which effectively, I'll talk about it in a minute, is nothing more than a switch, which just goes to the comparators on the existing electronics in Carrera, bypasses everything else, and then goes to the C board and that looks like this. So it's a whole bunch of wiring, a whole bunch of boards, and you can see I came into the Carrera board and had to jump around things, but this basically works. The limitations are, this is what the lane gate looks like, and effectively, it's nothing more than 2 switches, which are these transistors. So if there's current flowing through the rails on one side, it just defeats the ability for the infrared to work on the other side. But we all know how, the braids going down the track are noisy. This thing, the sensor's no latching, it's kind of switching a lot. And this is what the S board on O2 looks like, and it kind of drives it crazy, mainly because this first part here, from what I can tell, is doing some level shifting, and then there's a high frequency filter pass of information over to a comparator, which I think is doing edge latching to give a solid square wave out here. So I'm going to do some SPICE simulation of this to see if I can't get this working to a higher level. Then at the same time as I'm always digging into stuff, I have a tendency when I get decoder chips, I dig into them. So this is like a Carrera chip, a C1 chip. This is the Generation 2 Scorpius chip. Here I'm probing around it. And in the process of doing it, I noticed this on one configuration where this is the current. It's actually the voltage across the 1 ohm resistor. So it's the current spike that happens when you slam the throttle from 0 to max, and then it decreases, and then you get your back EMF thing here. And this happened to be a unique method using less MOSFETs for controlling the motor. and it created this nasty spike, and I wanted to go simulate it. So I posted a question the other day about helping me with the parameters for this motor so I could start to simulate this effect, but then kind of ran into all these parameters over here and hoping that someone had been down this path before me, but discovered that that's probably not true. And I think I have a handle on most of them, but I'm going to have to go do a circuit that helps me determine what this inductance is. So that there's yet another diversion that I'm playing with. Let me see if I can get this to advance the next slide. There. So for me, this is what digital slot looks like. And this is the world that I play in while I listen to you guys talk about printing and chassis building and racing and all that. So hopefully with this introduction and brief overview that other people will see this and we can maybe add an element to this meeting that starts to talk about this like Raz did last time, where, because I'm not an app guy. So for me, the Raz thing was interesting because that's, you could see I go down toward the bits and the hardware, and I don't deal too much with the other side where you get up to an app that, you know, is working on some operating system. So anyway, that's me, and that's what I like playing with in slots.
I mean, I'll be entirely honest, most of that was way over my head, but I know of people out there who are into slots and into this kind of stuff. Like you mentioned, Raz does the app side of things, and you're digging into the hardware kind of things. There's Clive out there. I don't know if he's watching the show, but I'm definitely going to point him to this episode so that he can kind of see. I'm sure you've been conversing with Clive at some point.
Clive, not, is that Dr. C?
Dr. C, yeah.
No, you know, he exited about the time I entered. So I read his stuff on Slot Car Forum International. I had no way of knowing how to get in touch with him. Okay, but yeah, we've kind of converged to similar areas.
I will put you in touch with him. He has begun posting again on slotracer.online, so you can kind of hop on there and see what he's currently up to. But basically, because of the various things that happened, he kind of went offline for a while and is doing things behind the scenes, and he's gonna he's preparing a website for his projects and stuff like that. But I did notice that he's starting to post again on slotracer.online, so you could probably hop on and private message him there. But I'll send you a private message with his email address so that you can email.
Yeah, that would be good, because you know I try to be very careful, having tripped through all the emotion that was going on in that forum, and I talked to both the Scorpius side and the Slotted side, and I try to stay away from anything other than very specifically, you know, focused on.
It's a minefield, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So you try to be cautious.
I'll make sure that you and Clive are able to communicate, and he definitely shares a lot of similarities with the kind of aspect that you're coming at. So yeah, I'm sure you guys have something to talk about.
So do people find in general this kind of stuff being put on, you know, like Slot Forum International and stuff, to be helpful, or, you know, like,
you know, it's a smaller group. I fully encourage and support it, because, you know, if people like you and Clive and Raz and you know, the few others that enjoy this aspect just said, well, nobody's interested and didn't post it, then the other few people who are looking for that kind of thing, or didn't realize that they could get into that side of the hobby, wouldn't, right? Mm-hmm. So can keep doing what you're doing. You know, you might not get 1 million likes, like, you know, somebody who's
I'm not there for that. To me,
that's there's people out there who appreciate it, just like you and Clive and Raz and you know, the other guy, David, you mentioned earlier. They're out there, and they just you know, and a lot of them just don't interact, right? They're there.
Well, that's how David was. He worked on his own, completely independent of everything, for 3 or 4 years. Then one day he was looking his approach wasn't quite working, and he was looking for something else, and he tripped over my autonomous thing, sent me a PM, and then we went completely offline, outside the forum, and did a bunch of stuff. But we were collaborating over Zoom. We were doing FaceTime meetings where my camera was just looking at my scope, and we were looking at signals and, banging away at like, well, what could that possibly be? And no, you got it wrong. No, you've got it right. So would having the graphs of the SCP-3 be beneficial? You're an SCP user.
I think so. I mean, they shared that spreadsheet for a reason. I haven't used it in forever, and I haven't asked Maurizio, but I wouldn't be surprised if the password protection was accidental. I can't imagine why they would share that file with password protection. They used to have a simple Windows app that you could literally turn virtual knobs on the controller and pull the virtual trigger to see how the throttle moved, but that's no longer available either, and I lost track of my copy of it. But yeah, I mean, they generally are fairly open, and transparent about things. So I'm guessing that was unintentional. So yeah.
Yeah, they are. Matter of fact, I thought the graphs helped me big time on making better use of the SCP-3, and truly understanding what a lot of those knobs are doing and to what degree.
Yeah, I wish that the virtual SCP was still downloadable, but the graph is better than nothing. So yeah.
Can we ask a question?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Okay, so thanks a lot for the presentation. I think, I mean, it's very good to see people digging down at this level of the protocol, although I think, as Greg was saying, for most of the people, for most of us, basically just it's too low level and not appreciating what's happening. But I mean, it's very good. So coming back specifically to what you're trying to do, seems to me that you're trying to reinvent the wheel, because if you take a C chip with the Carrera protocol that you can download directly, basically it's able to achieve what you're trying to achieve minus the autonomous car.
Well, maybe I'm a bit confused here, because if I make an SCP-3 controller Carrera compatible, then I'm stuck with the Carrera protocol through the control unit, and I'm missing out on all the good features of going around that. Because the trouble with Carrera is braking is set by the control unit and it's fixed. You only have 15 speeds. You don't have, you don't have your minimum. Well, you have a minimum. You have a maximum speed. You don't have, you don't have all the knobs. I want the knobs. And I want the quickness of the RF connection versus a 75 millisecond cycle that you get with going through the Carrera protocol. The Carrera protocol, what I like about the toy guys, and I apologize, I know absolutely nothing about the SSD Hornby side of things, is that since they're making a product that goes a lot broader than the RF guys that we're talking about, they're robust. They're pretty solid. And like in my case with what I'm doing, I don't update my O2 and Scorpius stuff much. If I'm working at a level, I leave it alone because I don't want to get wrapped up in, like, I haven't done anything with version 4. I'm still back on an early version of 3, because then I would kind of have to start all over again in some cases. But
yeah, Gio, I think I understand what you're getting at, but Ed wants all of the best of all of the worlds, and basically he wants the precise control and throttle control of Oxygen or Scorpius, but also with recorded playback autonomous cars. Like, if he had experience SSDC, he'd know what RCS64 could do as far as recording and editing and playing back an autonomous car. But he basically wants everything in, like, the perfect digital system that I talked with you about a while ago that doesn't exist. He's trying to bring all of the best things into one thing using custom hardware and interfaces and things.
Well,
Yeah,
when
which
you, when
basically,
you, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
no, so it seems like, it's what you want is oxygen that is able to work on Carrera lane changers, basically.
Well, what I don't want, what you hear is people say, hey, I got to go from my investment in Carrera and I'm going to upgrade to oxygen. So I got to buy a bunch of chips. I got to convert all my lane changers. I got to do this. I got to do that. And I looked at it and I thought, well, no, I want to keep all the stuff I have. It works. It's not broken. It's perfect. I don't like my controller. What can I do? Oh, I could take this controller and make it do what I want. Okay. And oh, by the way, I'm a lone user. I don't have anybody to race with. And, just running a car around my track is interesting and not as much fun as taking the diversion into electronics, but maybe I could make it such that I can put some competitive cars on the track. Okay. That's yet another thing. I did it with Carrera and I thought, well, there's no reason why I don't think I could do it with O2, once I get there. So it's just a side thing. But the big thing was there's got to be a better controller. You got to break the 75 millisecond cycle, without having to change every single thing. And so my quest was to go down that path.
If someone were to productize something out of the work that you're doing, a good idea might be essentially a 2.4 gigahertz receiver like the Wireless Plus that Carrera offers, except that it receives the signals from a slotted SEP3 controller and responds to all of the changes. Like when you turn the brake knob, it changes the brake value sent to the car and so on and so forth.
Yeah,
well, so it requires basically so the protocol is to change, right? So basically you might use some part of the hardware from Carrera, but the actual protocol that is over the air basically needs to be changed if you want to use all the knobs and commands that are coming from the controller.
Well, my pitch to Maurizio, and he kind of liked it, was look at, if we could do this and we could get the LC to go in through the control unit the way we do it, then on his case, it's a simple box that we build, or he builds hopefully, and productizes that creates the interface. He sells SEP3s and he sells C1 chips, and he makes a little either firmware or a mode setting. And boom, he's got a really nice way for people to take a Carrera set and upgrade to an SEP3. And then maybe over time, if they want to upgrade further into oxygen,
Yeah, but okay, so if you are selling like SP3 controllers, you need a box and then you need the C chip. The only things that you're keeping from your Carrera original thing are the car, the truck, and the control unit. So it's still quite a lot of money that people have to invest.
Well, right? Yeah, so I'm just not doing the track modifications with the LC electronics. I'm not using any of the RMS simulation stuff on the oxygen side. I don't use Carrera cars to begin with. All my cars are NSR, so I buy third-party chips anyway. I think people that move in the hobby beyond the basics of the toy guys do that. So if I listen to this forum a lot, most of you aren't running, on the digital side, aren't running too much of that stuff anyway.
Oh, when I started directly with the SDS, right? So that's because there was RCS 64, I like the simulation. And at one point I was thinking, okay, 6 cars, the controllers are shit, although I update to the true speed ones. So I was looking to get to the SP3 to try to work with the problem. But the main limitation that's still there, it's a fact that the protocol that is running through the rail, through the APB, SSD, it's the actual limitation because it's not transporting the kind of data that I want from my controller. And so at the end I say, screw this, I'm gonna move to oxygen, no matter what is. And in that case, it was not that expensive because, okay, so you have to buy the controller, you have to buy the chip, as you basically are saying, and the actual lane changes, they work with oxygen. So it's not a kind of, I didn't need to change much of that. So if you have, or, these kind of, you want to make it easier for people to transition from the toy world to something that has a better kind of controller. So I think what the bottleneck is the kind of the protocol, because if you're able to kind of install a firmware or something, plus maybe some kind of receiver that is able to talk with the controllers directly, like actually a bit like what Scorpius does with the dongle through the RMS, basically. Although that's from the computer to the APP that where the actual problems then happens, because then it has to convert to SSD. Because if that piece could be kind of changed, then you could have kind of better controls implemented. And you need also to change the firmware on the chip. So the actual transition requires so much kind of steps that basically at the end of the day, moving from the toy to a more pro level thing requires kind of I think it's neater to move straight to what you need to do, what is your end game, instead of having these kind of middle steps that then people get confused. And then the other thing also that I'm saying after 10 years of playing around with digital is that having small third parties or individuals trying to do all of these, basically it's also what the bottleneck is, because then people disappear, nobody's gonna maintain it. So you need to have the actual manufacturers be invested in this, right? In this case, it would be Slotted, for instance. But then again, they are very small. They're already struggling to bring like a level, Oxygen 4 to the market. Imagine maintaining the product.
I'm gonna cut you off, Gio, because basically the end game is that this is part of the hobby that he enjoys. That's his end game is enjoying this side of the hobby. Yeah.
Well, and my end goal was to expose this so that if this was open more and you're helping these guys to productize, expand their offering by doing a lot of the development that they could then leverage and move forward, would be great, because there's a lot to this. But think about it, if the RMS that Oxygen or that Slotted provides is great for racing, but it doesn't have the things that I forget what the other one's called.
RCSO2.
Yeah, that has all that other stuff in it, but that's a third party thing. And you look at it, it's a lot of what the digital world is like in general is that look at the open protocols, got people doing all sorts of stuff, and all these things come about because there's all sorts of people creating and doing, and then it converges, and you end up with everything advances in it. Everybody benefits,
In general,
that's what it seems to me digital is suffering. You have two camps. There's a lot of there's a lot of opinion out there between the two camps, and
you've got more than two camps, really. When it comes down to it, you've got the Carrera Digital, you got the Scalextric Digital, you've got Ninco Digital. There's people out there still using that. You've got SCX Digital, 3 types of SCX Digital, groups out there. And you got the Scorpius, and you got the Oxygen, and you go to France, you've got Davik.
Davik, I looked at Davik. I agree with you. There's Davik. There's all the Bestline racing stuff, and I agree. Yeah.
It kind of goes back to what we used to complain about for years and then got tired of complaining about it, which was a standard protocol that all the manufacturers could use, because then it basically comes down to, well, look at what model railroading did. They standardized, but then the model railroaders will come back and say, sure, but then they started differentiating again by adding all kinds of things that isn't in the standard. Yeah. So it's like, it's a futile effort.
No, I agree.
I think we spent an hour on this. Let's open things up to show and tell like usual, and then we'll do some Club Corner if we've got time. Pete, your hand up super early. Did you have a show and tell, or did you have something real quick that we could swing back on?
I just had a question. That spreadsheet that you mentioned about the SCP controllers, I think I might have found it.
Yeah, but when you download it and open it, does it require a password?
Okay. Oh, not to use. It requires a password to dig into.
Like to edit?
That the one there?
Yeah. But if you try to go look what's underneath that, you can't see it.
That's what he's talking about. Okay.
Yeah. No, you can play with it. You just can't. You can't look at the nuts and bolts.
You can't see the equations under the cells, under the data.
Yeah. All right. Well,
That makes more
now
sense.
that I have it, let me work on that.
All right, perfect.
And I did have one show and tell thing.
Okay.
Been working on a lot of kits in the summer and spray painting them a lot. And what I used to do to spray paint is I have just some 1/2 inch piece of wood, and I have this foam that I used to cut to basically fit the width of the car, stick it on there, put the car over top, paint it. But what I discovered, and I've just demonstrated all over my keyboard, is that in between painting, it flakes off and gets everywhere. So it was a bit of a pain in the butt. And now I have it all over my keyboard. So what I did in the meantime was I had a look at the Tamiya paint stand, how it has those spring-loaded wire things, and it's kind of expensive. So I thought, hey, I have my 3D printer. I can design something and just use a simple rubber band. And I made it so that it's longer one way than the other. So if you have different widths of cars, and then also the little, for lack of a better word, the little bits on here, I have like 2 sizes. So there's one and it's spring loaded, and I've just got some hardware here, and it works pretty good. I don't get little bits of paint flaking all over the place. And I don't know, I probably will release this on Thingiverse, so you can print it. I might want to do one more thing, and that is, if you don't want to use a piece of square wood, I'll make this so that it can accept square or a 1/2 inch dowel. It works pretty good. I've made a bunch of them, use them.
That's super clever. What about, it looked like you had metal hardware for the hinges.
Yeah, I've got screws. It's 332. What I started with was just old axles that I pulled out of cars. I would cut and just press fit a piece of axle.
I'm thinking filament, 1.75 millimeter filament is very popular for that kind of usage.
For like a hinge pin.
Yeah.
Pete, how easy it is to take the car off once you finish painting, right? You want to take the car off and put in a container. How easy it is to get it off without touching the paint?
Probably not capable of doing that. I usually leave it on this until the paint is well cured, and then you just you get up underneath and pinch it closed. Yeah.
And about dust, because if you keep it like that, I mean, in an open environment, you will not have a dust kind of going over the paint. I mean,
yeah, I suppose I don't get that critical with my cars because I race them all.
He's not doing a show concourse.
No.
Oh, fuck, man. Okay, so
that's it for me.
Greg, did you lower my hand?
No, not on purpose.
Okay, so bloody things. When you hear me talking, basically lowers my hand. I mean, okay.
I mean, it's possible that I accidentally clicked it, but I didn't intentionally. No.
Okay.
No, Giovanni. No, your hand is still up.
I just raised it up again. So.
Oh, sorry.
All right. Thanks for showing that, Pete. I look forward to you sharing that. I think that's a clever apparatus that you've created. And Gio, you apparently want to make sure that you get your share in. So go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, this is so I finished the Lexus. I mean, I added those couple of antennas that I need to put on, and I'm contemplating maybe redoing a couple of them because there is a sister car that is in red. So, but that will be kind of something maybe for over our summer down here. So. So basically, I'm trying to kind of starting a new project. So this will be the 488 GT3 Evo. I don't think that Carrera does this exact model, and so the only kind of version that you can find, I might be wrong, but the one that I can find that is quite competitive at this stage is the Area 71. So it's kind of 3D printed using the new technology. So I'm using also this project as a base for kind of play around with the 3D printed bodies, because there is another project coming up that I'm not gonna talk about it right now. And so basically I hate sanding, right? And 3D printing bodies requires a lot of sanding. So, but I'm trying to force myself to learn how to do it properly. So this is the body out of the box. So it's 10 grams. And I think this is because TA does a very bad job in designing the body, putting a lot of extra bits that could be moved into the chassis, like the front and rear splitter. So there is so much extra weight that I don't understand why they do it. Plus, they still keep going with this 4-point for the screwing to the chassis, so which again adds extra weight. So they also provide you with an interiors that is a 3D printed, actually quite a lot of nice details, although it's again crappy 3D printed stuff that is not as smooth as should be. And it's 5 grams, which is quite a lot for an interior. So my plan is to remove the cage, the roller cage here, and then do vacuum form the base on this one. And the wing actually is pretty light, so 0.39 grams, which is very, very good. The overall stuff goes at 15.7 grams, and still there are some other parts that I need to put, because actually this is quite nice. So the fine details bits like lenses and mirrors and stuff like that, they print in resin and provide with the kit, which is pretty nice. That's cool. Now, okay, so the body looks pretty rough, and what I did, I used this filler from Duplicore to kind of try to make it as smooth as possible. Let's put it this way. And so these are the body look after finished spraying. Look like almost like it was ready to go. I mean, super smooth. But 3D printed basically material absorb a lot of the material that you put on top of it. And so after doing all after basically this stuff dried up, it was pretty rough again. So this is the body after I kind of sanded, and you can see that there are some low spots that are still there, which I hate. I mean, this is not even close to be ready to go for a decal job, because it will look through. It will come out pretty badly. So I did some extra kind of sanding, and these are kind of prepared the body. I think this was after, I did all the sanding and kind of removing those. I tried to bring as flat as possible. Then I sprayed with another primer. So this is actually Mr. Hobby primer, the 1500, whatever it is that, whatever doesn't mean 1500, I don't know exactly, but it's one of the fine ones, I believe. So sprayed, and then again went for an extra sanding session. So this time I use like Tamiya sponge, in order to, oh no, maybe not. So I think I use the 2000 grit wet and dry, and I did another session with that. And again, it started to look a bit better, but not still kind of good as it should be. And you remember the body was 10 grams, and after all this basically sucked up like 2 grams of material, so which is quite a lot. Anyway, so I went for a first kind of a coat of black semi-gloss paint. This is Tamiya sprayed from my airbrush. And again, you can see some of those low spots still visible. So I didn't kind of clear coat yet. And I went for another session of sanding. So you can still hear some of the details around here. I mean, it's not completely visible, but there is also some kind of spots that are around here where like some of the decals will go, and again, these will be super visible. And yeah, so, and actually the overall weight didn't change much. So the paint was, I think, not up as, I mean, I didn't spray as much as kind of as like the primer. So the primer, I think, also has the filler, so which means that it will put more weight onto the car. And so after basically doing another session of kind of sanding the body and kind of with the 3000 sponge from Tamiya, so I did another session of kind of spraying, and this time I also covered with clear coat. This is the Tamiya clear coat gloss, and actually I think it's not that bad in terms of the smoothness. I mean, this is still quite wet. I think the camera is picking up more than what is kind of what is actually happening, I would say. You can see that, I mean, the rear, most of the rear now is kind of flattish, or better than it was at the beginning. And traveling still at 12.6 grams, which is not too bad. I mean, so I think if I kind of get rid of the interiors with putting like a Lexan one, should be like around the 1 gram or a bit more, maybe, because there is also engine parts there. So I think that the body could be made competitive, even adding the extra racing bits. So this is where I am at the moment. So with this project, so let's see. I think it's almost ready to go for decals. I might do that over the weekend, although there is some kind of small extra painting that I have to do because of decals. So don't have one kind of yellow part that goes over the splitter, and I need to kind of I need to paint it, but it's gonna be a pain in the butt because it's very difficult to reach the lip of the spoiler through masking and stuff. But so I'm still contemplating whether doing it or not. I think that's all for this stage. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, 3D printing is still kind of it's still a lot of work, man, to get to where I need to go. I don't know if it will be much easier to just kind of taking Carrera body and reducing the, removing weight and then try to go from there. But I would say,
I mean, the sintered nylon, which looks like what that was, is very resilient, but people are coming up with good combinations of resin for resin printing, and the result, the print you get from a resin print is usually a lot smoother, a whole lot less work. But then, somebody has to provide that particular a body you want as a resin print, and make it with good resin that's resilient enough. And
yeah, that's the main niche, right? Having a resin that is digital racing resistant, let's say.
Yeah, what's it like to work with the Dremel on the inside of those body shells? Have you done any of that yet? And any scraping?
With on the 3D printed bodies?
Yeah, that particular one, the PA12, I presume it is.
I didn't try.
Maybe we'll find out.
I think I can still manage to get within the 19 grams. That's my kind of goal for the body. I think I can manage to do that. Because if I have to do also dremeling, I mean, I have to do the bloody sanding and the dremeling again, then really, I mean, going for a Carrera body will make much more sense.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, at least I do one thing instead of I'm impatient. So that's why the main reason that I really, So if I could go straight to painting and decaling, I mean, I would be happy, but yeah. Anyway.
Yep. And that's all why I don't do any of it. All right. Thanks for showing that project. Look forward to progress on that. Tony, you got your hands up. What would you like to share today?
Just come this morning.
All righty. White kit.
Is that a Ferrari?
No,
it's the Porsche.
No, it's the Porsche, the Scale Auto Porsche.
Yeah, Scale Auto hypercar.
What kind of paint you gonna put on it?
I haven't decided yet. I'm still waiting for the compressor to come. And this.
Ooh.
Oh yeah. They went and came out with another blue and yellow livery I'm gonna have to buy. Damn it.
They do this in blue and yellow.
No, not that one, but yeah. I think it's the Mercedes, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, that's
Mercedes,
Mercedes. They've got the black one with the Petronas colors and the silver one with the Petronas colors.
Which one
They're
did they
both
do?
very pretty when you see
I
them
just
in the
saw-
flesh.
I just saw pictures that they're gonna do one in mostly yellow with some blue accents. I thought it was a Mercedes.
Possibly.
Anyway, I'm sure I'll be showing that in a few months.
They do a blue and yellow Mercedes.
Oh yeah, I got the Bilstein one.
Yeah, that's a stunning car. That
Yep.
black one. Beautiful. Did you get the angle winder or the sidewinder?
Gonna have to take it off the
Angle
clip.
winder.
Angle one. Okay.
Can't go wrong with angle winder.
Who makes that, Tony?
NSR.
Thank you.
Good looking car.
Opinion, Greg.
What was that?
That's actually a matter of opinion.
Oh, it's a matter of track too, right?
Come on, it's the best of all worlds, isn't it?
Don't you like
No.
it, Chris?
It would be if the motors were the same, but they're not.
Mm.
So that the sidewinder on a track that's traction limited, the sidewinder is way better than the angle winder.
So the sidewinder would run better than.
No,
It
it depends on the track. If you have a track where you need a lot of traction, then the sidewinder is better. If you've got a track where there is a lot of traction and you don't need all the traction, or you want a car that will slide a little, then the angle winder is way better because it's 10 grams heavier just in the motor.
Because the sidewinders use the S can and the
The sidewinders use the short can and the 130 can, and the angle winders use the K180.
Yeah. Now, if you're running on plastic, there's another argument that comes in there.
Oh yeah, and if you're running on plastic, then
Right.
the long cans have a lot more magnetic downforce.
right.
Or also you can run good with the magnetic brakes. So
that too. Yeah. All right. Thanks for showing, Tony. Are you all done?
Yeah, that's it. That's me done.
All right, Dennis, go ahead.
I've got more a question than anything else. I was building up a Revo slot BMW 2002 yesterday that I bought. I bought a white kit. And while I was looking around and checking that I'd had the livery right that I wanted, I realized that these models have funny square tail lights, which I have never seen on a 2002. Every 2002 I've ever seen has round tail lights, similar to, but not quite the same as the old Cortinas. And I wanted to check with anybody, number one, was there a version of the Revo slot that has the round tail lights? Number two, were there full-size cars that did not have the round tail lights? I
Yes.
don't know whether anybody knew about that.
Yeah, 74 2002s had the squarish taillights.
Oh, okay. So these little square tail lights that are on this thing.
Yep.
That's the 74 after
Yeah.
version.
The later ones. Interestingly, they don't have the, well, of course it's a race car, but they don't have the side lights. In America, they had side marker lights.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, there's Jim showing. Ah, yeah, I got it. All right, thank you, Jim.
Which
All right,
one,
that was
which of the
All right,
kits did you get,
so
Dennis?
that was my question. The car that I did is a replica of a car that I remember running in South Africa, but it was in 1970. So it's actually wrong. The delivery is right, and
The taillights.
the taillights are wrong. Yeah. Oh well. I'm the only guy that would know that, so it won't really make any difference. Thank you.
All
Sure.
changed now. You've published the facts, Dennis.
Oh yeah, right.
Who's gonna
Yeah.
rag on you? No. Dennis running that inaccurate car.
Dennis, I just did a video on the 4 different styles of body flares on the 4 different Revo slots.
Yeah, I've got. It turns out I've got the wrong flare style for the particular car I was modeling as well. But I'm quite happy with the flares that I've got because I prefer this. I prefer the look of the car and the width of the car, as you were talking about.
Yeah, you can push the tires out much further, or further, not much further.
Yeah, well, now that you've got the 70s flares, you just need the platform shoes to go with it.
And the bell bottoms.
That's true. That's true.
All right, it sounds like we got your question answered.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, what would you like to share?
Well, I don't really think I ever fully presented my my little project. I've shared a few things. Thought I'd share a bit more of the development today.
Take it away.
Well, my ears are pricked up.
Yeah. Not a Porsche.
Yeah. So this is the model I'm sort of recreating for legal reasons, not a Porsche, but I think you understand what I'm trying to get to.
Yep.
I started in February this year. I don't really understand why right now. I had made one body previously, which was terrible. So I watched a bunch of YouTube on 3D modeling and just went from there. Thought, yeah, it's gonna be a fun project, probably done by the summer. And I got quite far. I got to a semi-accurate body show within a month. Then between March and May 2023, I added a bunch more details to the body, which took about probably twice the time it took to get it looking like a car. And I started making prototypes. I also had one ordered in SLS printed. So going back to what you were recently talking about with 3D printed bodies with the resins and nylons resistance, I can show you this. This is going full speed into a wall. And the body flexed so much that the guide broke. But the body was almost completely fine. There was a small crack.
Did the driver survive?
I didn't have an interior.
You didn't have a dummy in there,
huh? Yeah, but the material I've chosen, PA11, it's almost twice the impact resistance of PA12 and like 3 times of the best resins on the market.
Yona, so the model that you're showing there is just a raw 3D printed material, or you painted or prime it?
Yeah, I painted it. I don't really know why at this point, but that one's painted.
And what happened to the paint? Did you have any cracks after all that flex?
No, some cracks, but really the most cracks have developed over time because with the material exposed to water through the air, it gets softer. So this was, I think it was a couple of days after getting them from the printing company. So it was quite stiff. But since it's become much softer, and then a lot of cracks developed in the paint. But also this was quite cheap paint, so I think something more expensive would crack less.
Well, also, if you're really into mixing your own paint, you can actually put flex agent into paint as well to make it flex more.
Yeah, that's not for me. Anyway, moving forward, I during the summer, which already gone past my first expected deadline, I started working on the mechanical components. Went through a bunch of iterations with motor pods, chassis, and finished a bunch of the small details for the body. Now, more recently, I've started using more simulation in CAD, so I can see chassis flex, and this is, I believe this was for minimum radius on the body. And I've started just fixing everything for my second run of prototypes now. That's happening. I was going to order them yesterday, but there's been some issues with VAT and things like that. So hopefully getting them soon. And I'm gonna keep testing them a bit and hopefully having it available quite soon, at least before Scale Auto does there, because they recently announced this model.
Well, actually, they have not announced that. We saw it in that kind of exposition stuff, but I don't think I've not seen any kind of official announcement, but I might be wrong.
They had there was a 3D printed shell, so they've already got a model that they've reworked and adapted for 1/32 for a 1/32 slot car. So maybe not announced, but they are most certainly doing it.
So when does the JN body, let's call it JN Racing, JN Racing, there you go. When does the JN Racing announce their Porsche? Come on, you know people want that car.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I'm not going to announce it and waiting like Scale Auto did with the NSX and the Callaway C7. I'm not gonna announce it and wait a couple of years. When I'm completely satisfied with it, I'm gonna say that you can pre-order it now, and I'll have it delivered in 2-3 weeks.
Awesome. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, no, I don't think I had much to say.
Very cool.
Yeah. Anybody got any questions for Una? Anybody want to put in their pre-orders now?
Has Una applied for a job at Scale Auto or Slotted or NSR yet? Man, this would be a good portfolio.
Apply for a job at Porsche. Never mind.
Yeah.
They probably don't like me.
Are you kidding? It takes a thief to catch a thief. You'd be perfect.
All right, are you all done, Una?
Yeah.
Any idea how much any of these components weigh, Yona?
Well, that's I can estimate it through CAD and things like that. The body shell is going to be under 10 grams. I'm certain of that. More than that, I can't really say. The first run of prototypes was around 7 for the plain body shell, but I've done some reinforcements now, so I'm guessing around 8.5 grams for the body. Then
so when do you think you're gonna get the new prints out to your place? Because you said that you sent some new prints, right? So when do you think you're gonna get them?
When so there's a few issues. I've just turned 18, so I have to fix some things through my bank to be able to pay for the models. So not certain, but I'm hoping at least within 2 weeks.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so as soon as you're able to place the order, the supplier should be able to be 7 days to that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we'll bug him about weights in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
When he's got them on the scale. No, it's very interesting. It's highly advanced for an amateur first time build, isn't it? It's a fantastic looking piece of kit.
Fantastic start, that's for sure.
I don't think he needs to apply for a job. He'll be the next competitor to NSR and Slot It, and potentially.
All right, Yuna. Yeah, your future has been determined, so get to it.
You might make tens of dollars, my son.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right, let's stop.
That's the issue with SLS printing. The profit margins are incredibly small.
Yeah. All right, let's
and
stop.
The market is also small. So
exactly. Yep.
I'm expecting to make tens of dollars. Yeah.
All right, let's stop harassing Yuna and let's give Jim Rose some time. Go ahead, Jim.
Hey, I just got something really quick. Last year I went to Electric Dreams with my Group C cars, and I ran the Jaguar XJR10. And it's getting long in the tooth, so to speak, and it's getting beat up. And it finally broke the body posts a couple races ago, so I had to super glue that on to get through the race, and it was time to upgrade. So the chassis is still awesome, so I just built a new car, built a new body. And there's the new livery on my Jaguar, and it was able to win the race last week with the BRM tires that Mr. Douglas had recommended for the high bite tracks, and it looked great on the grid too. So I got a brand new body under an old good race car.
You know, you're not supposed to crash them, right?
I had it a year. That's it. That's just new body for an old car.
Crashes don't happen in analog, right? All in digital.
Yeah.
What's that? I didn't hear you.
You don't crash in analog, only digital.
Yeah, we crash in analog.
I know. I mean, I have a much more severe crash in analog than in digital, but you know.
It all depends on the drivers.
Jim, I've got a question.
Go ahead.
That axle straighter, why doesn't he sell it to the UK?
I'm shipping, I'm sure. You're talking about Ed Bianchi's axle?
Yeah. It's not an axle straightener.
Not a straightener, but it's a
straightener.
Yeah.
Just a measure. And I don't know. I'm assuming Greg is probably correct. It's probably the shipping that would be exorbitant.
The shipping is going to kill you.
Import taxation and all that's got complicated since we leave.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that I personally have when I do eBay and I don't ship internationally, if I ship a $20 product and there's an issue with it, I've got to sell 10 more pieces just to make up for the shipping back and forth to to, make the customer happy or do the right thing. So it's just not worth it to me. If I make a mistake or the post office, heaven forbid, makes a mistake, I have to eat it. So I just don't do shipping overseas for that particular reason.
I don't mind paying for the shipping.
No, but if I ship something to you and it's defective when you get it, I have to eat the shipping 3 ways. And if I'm selling a product for $10, just can't afford to do that. So it's just not worth it because of that. So that's why I don't do it on eBay, and he may be doing it for the same reason.
I would suggest, and eBay is part of the issue where so many complications. So what I would suggest, if you're desperate for that tool, private message Ed Bianchi and say, hey, you can find him on the forums. He's HO Race Pro on most of the forums, and he's pretty much always posting about his new things. So you can find him on just about any of the slot car forums, and just send him a message saying, hey, I'd really like your tool. Would you be willing to ship to the UK, outside of PayPal, but outside of eBay? And maybe he'll be willing to do that. I ship to the UK, but like Jim says, I had to ship a product recently to Denmark or something like that, and it's in the EU. I had the tax homologation codes and whatnot. I had no way to guarantee that the product would get there. So I basically had to say, dude, you're just going to have to accept the risk that if it disappears, oh well, I'm not going to lose money that's happening over there. So if you talk to Ed and say, look, I'll send you this amount of money to send me the product, you're off scot-free if it doesn't get here, maybe he'd be willing to do that. I've only had one shipment to anywhere on the other side of the world lost of the dozens that I've done, but it happens. So he might be willing to take that. He might be willing to let you take that risk, or he might not. But send him a message. You never know.
It's not a great risk, though. To your point, Greg.
It's not a great risk on my. I mean, in this case, I was sending a master kit for the slot, the wood track routing kit, which is about $100 worth of product and about $40 worth of shipping. And if it disappears, I'm out the $100 of product that I can't resell, and I'm out the shipping that just disappeared, and the customer's pissed off. So yeah, I'm not gonna. I decided I'm not gonna take that risk anymore. So the customer basically.
I can't buy any of that then.
Yeah. Then there's another option. You could also suggest, hey Ed, would you be willing to ship a 20 of them over to Pendle, and people can buy them off of Pendle? Maybe he'd be willing to do something like that.
Well, no, he only had 3. I offered to buy all 3, but a little sign came up, we don't ship there. So.
Yeah.
Jim, have you learned much since you've had with the axle checker? Have you discovered much with it?
I've discovered I've got a few axles that aren't straight. That's what it's for. So yeah,
they go to the bin.
Anything far wrong?
There's something that bugs me about any kind of straightness tool that's made out of a 3D print. I would want to have, if I'm using a jig or a measurement tool like that, at best it better be aluminum.
Right.
Or at worst it better be aluminum. At best it should be brass or machine tool steel or something like that.
And those are out there on the market, so that's not the only product that does that on the market.
No, there's lots of them out there.
You might want to, one option is, if you're not going to spend a reasonable amount of money, is just go buy a piece of glass.
Yeah, and roll the axle on
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I do. I've got a glass worktop and I do exactly that.
Yeah. Or you can quit buying crummy axles and buy good axles.
Yeah.
And they're no more, they cost actually virtually no more than anything from NSR, Slotting Plus, or all the rest of the guys.
And as a reminder to everyone, where do we go get these perfect axles that are the same price?
If you want a wonderful, get a Coford M623R.
M623R. 23R. Alrighty. Make sure we get that.
Yeah, those are every time we measure them from one end to the other, they're concentric. They're they don't hang up on a bushing halfway through. And
speaking
lots
of
of guys who run stupidly fast cars use them right out of the package.
So Chris, you guys have shipped a whole bunch of perfectly true tires down to Electric Dreams. Are you ever going to show us the machine that was responsible for doing that?
Yes, I went up to take pictures of it last week, and it was I didn't get the pictures. I will get pictures for you.
Okay, looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's not a machine that's going to be for sale.
No, I just want to see it.
It's like an industrial strength tire truer. It's all machined aluminum and ball bearings, and it's like a heavy duty truer.
Heck yeah, I want to see that beast for sure.
And in the interest of full disclosure, the MR Slot Car race that has just happened did not happen on tires that were issued by MR Slot Car.
Aww.
We were running on the same tires that we ran in the Slotted Nationals. That the rule was changed towards as we got closer to the time, just to let everybody use tires that they already had.
There were still most of them were a good majority of them were still G25s with foam inserts though.
Yeah, but they were a good majority of them were on slotted wheels, not on MR Slot Car wheels.
Oh well, I still want to see the machine.
And didn't come off that machine. Yeah.
Looking forward to seeing that machine. All right.
Yeah, me too.
So we got more hands. So Gio, what you want to do? Here we go. Ready to share. Oh yeah, the NSR brushless.
Oh yeah, I was going to bring this one up later. Has anyone got a price?
I was going to bring this one up later.
NSR made really nice wrappers for this motor.
There you go. But the ESC, is that just an off-the-shelf ESC as well?
No, it's their own one.
Yeah, it's clearly brand marked for themselves, so it's made by somebody with their own mark. Their mark.
PCB way.
The price.
I would like to see where they're gonna use it. I mean, if they're gonna make pods and stuff like that, or is gonna be just for a metal chassis type of racing.
At the moment,
no, that's what they said. It's only for Eurosport racing right now.
Right. If you click on see more, you'll see the price. The price is there. It's 300. I think was it euros? It's 370 for both pieces.
Yeah, 70 euros for the board and 300 euros for the motor.
But that's competing with $500 motors.
Yeah, Eurosport only, but yeah.
Well, that's because people in that market are familiar with paying that kind of money, I imagine.
Yeah. But they polled. Didn't they get pole position with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or top qualifier or whatever, yeah.
Well, Maurizio was in the A main also. Which
With
I thought for a guy that's never run it before was awesome.
Andrea.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, Andrea.
Yeah.
Wrong company.
Yeah, that we've been doing a lot of playing with the motors, and we're buying motors for $30. So wait and see what happens. There's lots of good motors out there, and that is an NSR label.
Yeah.
But for us, not just Eurosport.
Hmm?
But for like scale 132 kind of stuff.
No, it makes no sense whatsoever.
Okay.
Especially for digital guys, now you've got to get a digital chip in there. Now you've got to get a board in there. Yeah. Currently, you do it with an engine that costs $15 to $20. Now, for every car, the motor will cost the same, $15 to $20. Actually, they have to build some slower ones.
Yeah.
That sort of work with 30-second scale. The board's the most expensive thing, and they are finicky. You got to really match the power of the engine, if you will, to the actual capabilities of the board
and to the controls.
Yeah.
The thing is, they manufacture four of those ESCs on a single. They manufacture four of those ESCs on a single 20 by 20 board for drones, and
Mhm.
they are not expensive. It's because of market volumes and mass production techniques, etc. But those ESCs, they're a known thing. Those motors are a known thing. The drone
Mhm.
people know all about them, and it's just
Problem is that
transplanted into the cars.
The drone speed controller is you can't use it as is for slot car racing because the input to the board is completely different.
Right.
That's correct. Yeah, there's a different circuit board that controls the brain of the drone is sending the pure code for the control.
Chris, how much is it the board for that $30 motor that you were talking about?
Sorry?
How much is it the board?
Boards are $50, 50,
They're gonna
40,
be
50
around
bucks.
50.
Well, that wasn't
I
there
mean,
that
they're not expensive, but as Dennis said, boards are not boards. I mean, there's boards for drones on, little motors that are gonna lift up a 1/4 of an ounce drone and fly it around. The motors in the Eurosport cars are not like that.
Well, a few weeks ago, Henry was showing there was I think it was a German or Dutch company that was selling
Germany
motor and board
German,
combos
Deutschland.
for 1/32.
Yeah. There's
Like
still
you were
in
saying,
my
it's basically just a matter of having an appropriately an appropriate speed motor with an appropriate an ESC for analog control at that speed motor, and then selling it as a pair. But we're still talking about 100-ish.
right.
Yeah, you've got to remember too, when it comes to slot cars, particularly that board that you're putting in the car is not a speed controller. The speed controller is still in your hand. What's in the car is an electronic commutator.
There you go.
Oh, that's a nice phrase for it, Dennis.
Yeah, I really don't see it in the type of racing that most of the guys on the thing here do. You can buy a motor now for $20 and throw it away and put another in for $20, another one in for $20. These are they're a lot more involved. Versus a $450 Eurosport motor or an open motor, they make a whole bunch of sense.
Yeah.
There are guys now that are running at the ISRA Worlds. Guys ran them for practice, qualifying, and the race, where you do not do that with a traditional. You don't normally do that with a traditional open type brushed motor.
No.
That's exactly the same reason why they dominated the world of RC car racing. And
Well, coupled with the fact that in slot car racing, there are no power issues. We don't carry power in the car. The power is on the track. In RC racing, you have to carry your power. So anything that's light and efficient and extends your runtime really makes a whole bunch of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I mean, it's not the power. I don't give a damn about the power of the motors or whatever. So for me, what I kind of I'm interested is in the size of the motor. So once they will get more a commodity and cheaper, and then also like reducing the size and having pods that match the type of a motor as well, not using the current ones. I think you can have more room than for digitalized cars that at the moment I can't. So that's what for 1/32. That's what is my kind of interest. I mean, I don't give a damn about speed or whatever.
Yeah,
and in the future, when also maybe there's going to be an option for some of the manufacturers here that do digital chips also to have the board basically embedded inside the chip. And if I were to pay a bit more, it's fine. I mean,
you might see that, but I mean, the major manufacturers now are buying their motors for a couple of bucks. So you're asking them to pass that on to a consumer because the prices of boards will come down. The prices of motors will come down, but by how much? I mean, it's still a tiny little wee hobby compared to RC. You got manufacturers, producing 500 new cars. Well, if you put an order for a brushless motor into China for 500 motors, they won't even talk to you. They won't even produce them.
They
Yeah.
won't even answer.
I mean, it's basically kind of that, we can buy the motors ourselves as long as there is the other bits there. Like, for instance, for the SP3 controller, we are not buying Slot is not producing the LiPo batteries for that. So you're buying a third-party batteries. So, I don't see any problem if we can, as long as they say, this digital chip with this board basically works for X list of motors, for instance. As long as you buy by yourself, then it's fine.
I think the traditional manufacturers will also avoid it because companies like Slotted have to redesign all their motor pods. And then what happens to the hundreds of thousands of cars that are already brushed running around there in 30-second scale? It's completely different in open racing, which is what Wingcar and Eurosport is right now. You can run whatever you want with very limited rules.
Well, I think what NSR did is they found a niche of our sport, being Eurosport, and they perceived a problem being that the motors are expensive and require a lot of maintenance.
Right.
And they're going to produce a motor for 370 euros that will probably replace $1,000 worth of motors that you've got to take to the track. And I think they did a great job doing that, and they could revolutionize or greatly increase the number of people that want to run Eurosport with that product. But those perceived issues don't exist in 30-second scale. So I don't even think, we can talk about it all we want, but there's no need for that in 30-second scale at the moment.
No, absolutely right. Precisely. And right now, they just ran an enduro on the weekend in the States, and they're all using KZ motors. And all the KZ motors are like $20, and they had no problems with them whatsoever. So
they are coming. They will come to our plastic chassis ultimately. It's just a question. It might take 10 years, but they will come.
Well, they may or they may not. Who knows?
There's no need for them.
It's not just on the manufacturer to change the pod. There could be people doing 3D printed pods and chassis for that kind of motors. Again, I think it's going to open a lot of possibilities, and especially from the digital side.
It could already be done by someone like Yona, who's got the design capabilities to make the room for the two circuit boards, a digital board and a board for the controller. You could do it already, but as soon the only thing stopping it working right now for us, Gio, with the digital side is as soon as someone puts the ESC on the digital chip for the brushless motor, then it's a go.
Mm-hmm. I think you're right. It's going to be a combination chip eventually.
Yeah.
I looked into making a brushless pod. The dough slot that Henry used, that board is essentially the same size as a C chip. So
you could stack them,
Yeah, I was thinking exactly the same. Though, as long as, for instance, you have the pod space where you could put the two things on top of the chassis instead of sitting on the pod, like the design that Yona has, then basically you're not even increasing too much the COG of the car.
Because real estate on the chassis is difficult, and when the ESC is as big as it still is, and I think they're still quite big. I think miniaturization of those ESCs is going to happen also. And then incorporation, that's going to be Mr. Maurizio's job, I think, with an oxygen chip for them.
Or Scorpius.
or any other, but I doubt it will be Carrera, Scalextric, SCX, or any other.
No, I don't.
They're toy companies.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna catch you guys. I'm gonna cut this conversation off. We still got two more hands we want to squeeze in the last few minutes. Pete, what you got?
Just quickly, you mean you don't want to try and squeeze that into a 1/32 scale slot car?
That's
exactly.
And
that's an RC one, though, right?
Yeah.
Oh, God, that comes out of that thing is ancient, right?
Oh yeah, that's from the mid to late 80s.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I had those.
I put in the chat. I put a link to the slotted curbs file. It's the XLS version. It was pretty easy to unprotect it. If you want to check it out, download it, play with it, do whatever you want. I hope I set the settings proper in my Google Docs to share that. So there's the link. Try it. If there's any issue, I guess just try and contact me somehow.
That opened.
Very fast.
Okay.
That opened right up for me.
If you click on any of the curves or even the cells, it shows you all the formulations and stuff. So there you go.
Good deal. I'm sure that's what Slotted intended, but you know. Anywho, let's move on. Dewan, what would you like to share or ask?
Are we on?
We're on whatever you want to talk about. We got 10 minutes before we go not live anymore, but you know, like usual, we'll still chat after that. The MR Slot Car Challenge.
Something happened over the weekend, yeah. I didn't go there to compete. I went there to participate, as I mentioned.
Okay, I was gonna say I thought I saw you there.
I participated. It was fun. Actually, it was a nice little experience, getting out of my comfort zone and dealing with real competitors. But it was a little bit smaller than the slotted nationals, but not much. It's 30, I think 35, 33 or 35 people signed up, and about 30 actually participated in the actual event. So in those shows. And much to my surprise, I did not finish last. Let me see if I can get my. Oh boy, I have to use my arrows, I guess, because I can't get my mouse. The arrows gonna work in this. Let's see if I can get that to happen.
Yeah.
Great one. Yeah, good job.
Okay, but yeah. So this is a web page anyway. Yeah, so you guys probably seen all this, but yeah. So Ernie was there and I had a great chat with him. I told him I'm gonna try to make it up to Toronto to see him and Chris on whenever they have some kind of event up there. But, so this was the grid, and you can see on the fourth car over. You can't see this is the same car.
All right, dark blue with a yellow stripe. Good choice, or orange stripe. So on the track, you're the fourth car from the left.
That is correct. So I was the fourth one over, and it was a bit of a challenge. First day, I was struggling quite a bit, and I was, I think the elites were in the low sixes, and competitors were in the mid sixes, and I had trouble getting out of the nines and the eights, but I was so anyway. I had Marco look over the car, and he took it to the back and performed some magic. Came back and shaved a hole, almost a second off of my so that was good. But nonetheless, during qualifying, I didn't really do very well. I couldn't stay in just that 1 minute. I didn't have a clean lap at all, so I was the last qualifier, which was fine with me. So that's why I was on the final grid. The first, just some more candid shots. That's Craig Williamson. He's part of our fire club. He did a pretty decent job of being the color commentator. Also, I guess
that looks like a Dennis car.
That is a Dennis car. The previous one was also one of mine, but for my friend Gary, the yellow and white and red one.
This is a wonderful looking car. Thank you for allowing us to see your talents. Yeah, just more stuff. And this is obviously the podium.
Yeah, Todd won.
Yeah, I believe Todd is from Northern California, isn't he?
No, he's a Southern California guy.
Okay, well, he does a lot of things for the Northern California guys. He can't because I see him down at that confused because I see him down at all the Electric Dream races, but he's kind of collaborates quite a bit with the Northern.
He's kind of on our team now, sort of. Kind of, sort of.
But he's definitely shown his skills, finishing second in the slotted nationals and then winning this over Ian.
Yeah, and he had quite a lot of problems in his one of his heats because his controller started giving trouble and he had to change out one controller for another. But he didn't lose that many laps, and so he still made it into the final, or into the semis, and then into the final. And then the final, he was gone. Yeah. Nobody saw which way he went, not even Ian.
Yeah, so right at his head. And that's pretty much it. So yeah, great looking car. And
interestingly, he was the only one in the final that ran the Porsche Evo, the GT1 Evo.
Really?
Everybody else was running McLarens, but in the rest of the top 12 and in the field in general, there were a lot of Porsches. So it was quite interesting how initially I thought, it's going to be like the Jaguar thing at last year's slotted nationals. Everybody's going to run a McLaren, but they didn't.
Yeah, I actually had a Jag as well, my backup car. But,
my Jag actually felt pretty good. I eventually ran the Porsche because I prefer the shorter car, but overall there was a good mix of the three different bodies. The racing was very close.
I was hoping to catch Chris in the video somewhere, but he didn't go, huh? I'm so disappointed.
Chris didn't show up. Chris
Walker. Yeah, no, he wasn't there.
50% of the reason why I signed up. I signed up for more social reasons than the
What happened to having wheel inserts? Were there no rule regulations saying you must have them?
In the rear, you did not. At the rear, you didn't have to have them. At the front, you had to have them.
Interesting.
The part of the reason there is that they allowed different sizes of wheels, and sometimes the MR slot car cars come with a I think a 16.5 millimeter wheel, and the wheel insert that fits that doesn't fit anything else. So if you're not using that one, you can't use their wheel insert. And I mean, they could actually have mandated that you use an insert regardless, but didn't. It's a local rule that personally I don't agree with, but that's the way it is. Because I would like to see them with insert. My cars with inserts.
I think they look silly without inserts, but
I do too. It comes from the days. It comes from the days when the guys were using those Formula One wheels on the GT3 cars, and just didn't put the inserts in.
Yeah,
I mean, just finding the inserts for all the different wheel diameters can be quite a task.
That's Gary Donahoe's. That was Gary Donahoe's car.
You may have 10 sets of rear wheels.
Did somebody? They're parked in the. If you have a slot car of your car spot, did they break a slot car of their car? Because that's cheating.
Actually, no. He's parked on the ramp, so he's right next to the special parking.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's Stephen Farr Jones's original Mustang convertible.
Great looking cars. So
yeah, great event like usual.
That was Mark Natividad's car, that white one, that white Porsche. He made the top final too. So there were two of them. Yeah.
made
It
the
was a
podium,
white
didn't
kit
he?
that he used,
Wasn't he? No.
I think, Atalaya decals on. Very pretty car.
What did you run, Dennis?
I ran the Porsche. Did you not see it? There was a photo a little earlier on.
I just stepped away from it. That's fine.
Oh, yeah, I ran the Porsche.
Okay. Majority of McLarens, though?
In the final, there were 4 McLarens and 2 Porsches in the top 6. In the top 12, it was a little more even, I think.
And the Porsche won overall, Todd's car?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of the semifinals.
Okay.
Right there.
And you could see 3 McLarens and 3 Porsches.
Yeah, and that's Todd's on white on
Todd on white lane, Al Castillon on red, my own car on green. I don't recall. I think Cedric Harris on blue, Bobba Hooley on yellow. I can't remember. Herman, maybe. Or no, Walter Baines on black. That was the second semi.
Right.
Already autographed.
Hey Dennis, I thought those cars would be faster on that track. Were the
Well,
motors?
they're all running the flat 6 motor, which is only a 20.5 K motor.
Okay,
And
yeah, I thought those would be around 5.8, but they weren't.
And the gearing, it was difficult to get gearing, because you had to run the pinion that was supplied, which was a 6.5 millimeter 12 tooth. But you could run 11 or 12, but everybody, I think, ran 12s. And if you use the regular MR slot car gears, the 16.5 millimeter, the 15.5 millimeter gear, then 1228 is the longest gear ratio you can get, which is what most of us were running. Some of the guys went to the 14.5 millimeter gear and had to push it out a little bit to get it to mesh. And then you could go down to a 27. But that's about all you could get. And as soon as you started pushing it out, then it limits your tire width at the back. So, I think it was just a matter of what was available. And so they weren't as quick.
But the overall Todd's overall lap time was a record, or lap total was a record lap total, was it not?
For that
It's the
class
only
of
time they run
car.
it.
Okay.
It's got to be a record. It's the only time they've run it.
Yeah.
Do you think if it could have
Victor
been taller,
Dabrowski, he was the guy who did all the race directing. He's an ex-commercial raceway owner and long-time slot car racer, really nice guy, who is the second only to Facebook, the largest source of dad jokes in the world.
Dennis, do you think if the gearing could have been taller, they would have been quicker with that motor, or would
Probably, because they would have got a little bit more speed. But I think part of the limiting issue was just the grip on the track. There was a lot of grip, and I don't think Ernie had ever seen that much grip for a plastic car on a wood track. But the cars were a little tail happy most of the time. They were a little loose, and they tended to break away very quickly.
Yeah.
And
I thought they would be quicker than a Group C car.
Me too, Jim. I thought the same.
But track conditions obviously can play a big part in that.
And what are your Group C car motor limitations?
Group C's run the regular orange and bell slotted motor.
Okay.
So it has a little bit more motor for a starter, especially when you're limited by the gearing.
Right. And the weight of the motor.
Yeah, it's lighter motor.
Yeah, and light. Yeah. Although it is an inline, of course, in a Group C.
Yeah.
All right. I think we can close that topic. Ed has something.
Thanks, Dewan.
Yeah, very.
Yeah, excellent pictures.
I'm gonna swing by Allen's a couple of times this weekend and hopefully get some coverage. DNR Slot Cars is going to be there, I believe. So if you're not subscribed to them, go ahead and hit them up. That's the father and daughter duo that does the slot car stuff.
Say hi to them for me.
I'll say hi to them for everybody. And
But the DNA guys.
They're sorry, DNA. Sorry, my bad. They're on the YouTube right now. So if you're there, you can see them chatting there. But yeah, I'll hopefully have something to share on next Wednesday about that. And yeah, let's get to Ed, and then we'll close things out. What you got, Ed? You're muted. Ed, you're muted. Ed, you're muted. Ed. You're still muted.
There we go. It's in a different spot. You don't do a lip reading?
I'm not good at that yet. No. To my wife.
There's a gentleman that talks on these a lot, and as a newbie, he has a lot of nice things to say, but I never know quite who that is. And he's the guy that was talking about the tire machine.
That would probably
Chris. Yeah, Chris never shows his face.
No, and there's nothing here. So he's like, well, I wonder who that voice is.
Yeah, he's the disembodied voice of Chris Walker.
Oh, okay, thank you.
It's legal reasons.
Okay.
Witness protection.
It's like Home Improvement. At best, we might see his hat.
Yeah. Hey, neighbor.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, he posts on forums. He's usually under Chris W. or Chris Walker on the forums, and it's very open.
We should get Chris a logo or something that he can put up there. That way we all know who it is.
All right, on that note, I'm going to go ahead and end the live stream, but as usual, we'll keep talking until next week. Everybody wave bye. Bye. I'm hitting end, and we're waiting for the thing to say end, and now it's done. All right, now you are free to curse.